buy yourself a gun. What? Gun. What? Like a handgun. For personal protection. If somebody tries to mug you. What? What if your government tries to throw you in a can? What? You're gonna want a shotgun. What? One automatic rifle. And a lot of ammo. Gun? Yeah, gun.
We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They'll burn you out like a Waco. They'll stick your ass in a camp. Check for the cops in riot gear. Gonna kick your ass and laugh. The revolution is on its way. Better lock and load your AK. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. We're all set to riot. Buy a gun. Before you lose your Second Amendment. Buy a gun. They gave your money to the banksters. They stole your pension funds. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun. Before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Tuesday. It's primer time. My name is Michael. Dan is out taking care of Mom. One of the more important things in life. Dan, good luck. Good luck to your mom. I'm joined tonight by Captain Gringo.
How you doing, Michael?
Not too bad, not too bad. And all the way from South Korea, now back in the United States, my brother Nick.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Not bad. Good to hear you, man.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Nice to have you on tonight, Nick.
I appreciate it. It's good to be back and glad to be out of the land of the not quite right.
We're glad to have you back home because, like it or not, you may be back in the land of not quite right.
Well, it's better than where I was, so I ain't complaining.
We're glad you're home, man. We need guys like you here.
Good. So, what's going on here? Like I said, I'm getting used to it, and it's all coming a bit fast. It's going to take me a second to catch up. But what's the word on the street?
Word on the street: Chicago hit another high score this weekend.
Woohoo! Is the next one free?
No, I think they got a whole. I think you got to fill the whole punch card.
No hanging chads, right?
No chads. People in Chicago don't vote. It's apparent. Or if they do, they vote the exact wrong way. 47 shot in Chicago over the weekend, 5 dead, and once again, the call is for stricter gun control. I wonder just how many times, this is like several weekends in a row, that Chicago tries to break last week's record. And if they don't do it, they come within 2 or 3 of it. And the result is inevitably the same. Monday morning, the Chicago police chief comes out and calls for stricter gun control.
Well, my question is this, and maybe you guys can help me out. If we're getting 40-something people shot and only 5 dead, why isn't the call for like actual firearms training? If these guys are going to go out there and do it half-assed, they should actually be going out there and making their targets actually hit.
That'd make too much damn sense, Nick.
I'm telling you, it doesn't make any sense to me at all that 45 people get shot at and only 5 die. Come on, that's horrible shooting.
Well, you also have to take into account, half of these shots probably come from, a moving vehicle or somebody holding the gun sideways.
Yeah, well.
And grabbing their crotch at the same time that they're holding the firearm sideways. So
that sounds like profiling, and profiling is wrong.
I'm telling you, Homeboy Night Sights has a place in the world.
It does.
Put them on your Glock Photo or your High Point, whichever one.
Yeah, whatever works.
So that's pretty pretty disturbing. And I don't know if anybody saw it, but Mayors Against Illegal Guns, in association with Moms Demand Action, they're trying now to make the firearms control and the gun control issue a woman's issue now. And they, I don't know if anybody saw the commercial that they released, where it shows an idyllic home life, and all of a sudden a man is kicking in a door, and the woman is on the phone with 911, and she says, "It's my ex-husband, and he's angry." And he finally kicks in the door, and he smacks the woman around, and he tries to take the kid, and then at the end of right towards the end of the commercial, he pulls a pistol out, the screen goes black, and you hear the gunshot. And everybody I've shown that video to is, why doesn't this woman have a gun?
Yeah, I mean that's the common sense question, right? Since everything's about common sense.
Common sense reform.
Yeah.
Well, it's about common sense and thinking of the children.
Well, she obviously didn't think of the children because, number one, she wasn't armed. Number two, she was waiting on the mythical policeman to come and save her. Number three, she obviously didn't, follow the feminist creed of doesn't need a man to do anything. I mean, there's just errors all the way around.
Yeah, I believe that's exactly what they're finding out. Once again, if you happen to see this video on YouTube, it's blocked from comments and rating the video. I think that they did that for self-preservation. I don't believe the games are still working. I think people are starting to see through this type of propaganda and all sorts of other propaganda.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, heck, at the gun shows, look how many women are going around at the gun shows nowadays. 5-6 years ago, you didn't see many women at the gun shows. Now, heck, it's dang near 50-50, or not quite 50-50, but there's a lot more women at the gun shows and interested in shooting now than there ever was.
That's right, and they're not necessarily interested in a little 22 or a cheap 25 or anything, or something with pink or pearl handles. Now they're actually interested in something that will do some damage.
Yeah, no doubt. And something they can hold and actually shoot, and not just play with at the range. That they try somebody else's full size weapon and say, there's more like it.
Well, I think that as women get in and they get the exposure in the media of having the shooting sports in a positive light and gun ownership in a positive light, it's only natural to have a much larger presence in things like, firearms conventions, gun shows, things like that. And when you have this constant bombardment of every media outlet giving their 2 cents about gun control, whether it's on Monday Night Football, CNN, MSNBC, people become numb to it, and then they start to say, hey, wait a second.
But it's not just in the news, it's in every TV show, not just like the big things that you mentioned, football and the news stations. It's on The View, it's on it's on How I Met Your Mother, it's on all the TV shows. I mean, seriously, Archie Comics.
That's what I was about to say.
Is even feeding you the BS.
Oh yeah, and
go ahead, spill it.
Not only is Archie
the Archie story.
Yeah, not only is Archie Andrews going to meet his untimely demise stepping in front of a disgruntled shooter, he's going to be protecting a gay friend.
Boy, they just get them all in one fall swoop there, son of a gun. Don't leave any buzzwords out,
No. It would be better if it was a minority and if it was a lesbian and if she was butch. That's the only way you could even do more than that.
Is the guy doing the shooting hopped up on marijuanas or something?
No. He's
he injected 4 marijuanas.
He's disgruntled.
You always hear about the disgruntled guy, never the gruntled guy.
Yeah, never. I didn't know what disenfranchised was. I thought that's like when McDonald's said you couldn't use their logo anymore.
That would be the Washington Redskins that got disenfranchised.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I live in the middle of Redskins fan, country, and not a single person ever says anything about it. That's strictly for the disgruntled white folks who have, a lot of self-loathing about them.
Those are more accurately termed social justice warriors.
Oh yeah. The reparations seekers for people that Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, it's reparations. For that's still part of the thing. The joie de vivre, or whatever you want to call it. No, it would be raison d'etre for these people. But it moves beyond that, beyond the reparations, because I do think that segment of the population no longer demands the attention that they, or commands the attention that they once got for their plight. I think now the plight is completely different, and the enemy that they're claiming is still pretty much the same, but now it's everybody with a firearm.
Oh, of course. And the horrible thing is this: you look about it, and you look at all these states that are trying to think of ways to generate money. And I'll tell you what, the biggest cash cow for them is things when it comes to like licenses and fees that people pay voluntarily for hunting, fishing, sport shooting. All those types of things generate way more cash for the coffers than any type of gun control tax that they try.
But see, I don't think that the actual goal is to increase the tax base or to improve life. The goal, like history shows, gun control is all about controlling people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, when you talk about changing mindsets, you have to bring up James Brady passing away.
Yeah. He's a sore subject because I don't really like to give him any kind of crap, because honestly, I don't think all the stuff that was legislated in his name he had anything to do with, because honestly, I think that was a chatty Cathy just like Gabby Giffords.
Oh, certainly.
He had a bullet go off in his head, and let's talk about that for just a second. I mean, just a little bit off the subject. John Hinckley Jr., who has dubious ties to the Bush family, but beyond that, he shot an RG, I think it's an RG Model 24, which is a 22 caliber pistol, and he was using what they termed at the time Devastator rounds, which was a 22 caliber bullet that had a pistol primer placed in the end. So when hit, it would also detonate the primer. I don't think those actually worked. I don't think any of them actually performed as advertised.
Intended. Yeah.
Just
Right.
wasn't the Devastator they thought it was.
Well, when you think about a 22 caliber projectile doing damage, it'll kill somebody.
And also, it also came out of a 2-inch barrel. So no matter what its stated velocity was, it's going to move a hell of a lot slower, just because it doesn't have much room in the barrel to burn powder to create the gas to push it, right?
Certainly. And when you look at it this way, you bring up the point that the stuff that was legislated in his name wasn't his doing. I firmly believe that, and I think that at first it was called Gun Control Inc. that was brought into the forefront after him getting shot, and then it changed the Brady campaign to prevent gun violence. I think that when
Foundation and then Brady campaign.
Yeah, so I think that when you take a look at it, anytime you have to change your name to forward your organization's core tenets, obviously there's something wrong with your business model.
Yeah, new marketing campaign.
Listening to all the different polls that are out there. I'm not a big basketball guy, but I heard the best quote ever when I listened to Coach Mike Krzyzewski, who used to coach at Duke. He also used to be a former coach at the United States Military Academy at West Point. And during one of his many Final Four runs, they asked him if he ever, read the polls and believed what they said about his teams. And him being Polish said, no, actually the only poll I ever listened to was my mother. So,
that.
The way I look at it is that certain folks will try to advance their agenda by any means necessary, whether it's thinking of the children or whether it's invoking the worst case scenario through fear. But a lot of people are starting to see through the BS, and they're starting to say, what?
I think you're hitting on something very important. I think that because people are seeing through the BS, and combined with the fact that they'll do anything to further their agenda, we can go back to just about a month and a half ago. There's a group called Open Carry Texas, which has some tactics I don't necessarily agree with, but I agree with the mindset. Maybe not exactly how they're doing things, but whatever. They're getting up and they're getting off their couch and they're actually doing something. Well, they hold these carries where they go and they carry long guns into establishments, and I think they're trying to get the people to realize that carrying a long gun, which is totally legal in the state of Texas, is a little more intrusive than open carrying a handgun, which is illegal in the state of Texas.
Yeah, it is. It is.
This has been said, and it's caused problems with several different retailers, and maybe people see it that it's retarded the cause for gun rights, and some people think it's advanced the cause for gun rights. That's not my issue tonight, but to advance their cause. Recently, they held a march through a Target store, and about a couple hours later, they found a loaded pistol, in the toys section.
Oh, yeah. I wonder how that happens.
Well, that's what they're saying, and they're saying, oh, maybe one of these open carry guys left it there. And now, I'm a gun guy. I know if I've got it with me, I know where it's at.
Yeah,
that kind of stinks on that. But then here's the part that stinks the most about it is the pistol that was left behind was a High Point, which we've discussed them on this show a few times in the past. High Points are, I wouldn't say bottom of the barrel because they function, but they're probably the lowest priced handgun in the market that does function reliably. They're uglier than homemade sin. They're not super fast in their action. They're not a refined pistol. They look like they've been spray painted to get their color. They're really ugly. Open carry guys would not carry one of those. If you have one, that's the one that sits in the toolbox, or you leave it in your boat or something like that. It's not.
I think that any responsible firearms owner that pays his good money or her good money for a firearm is not going to be irresponsible and leave that firearm in that section. I mean, to me, that's obviously a plant. That's somebody.
That's exactly what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the agenda to go in there. It's the false flag. It is the, oh, look, these guys were doing this, and think of the children. It was in the children's aisle where any one of them could have picked it up, and the horrific tragedy that would have unfolded. It's too convenient, and I think that's where people start looking and saying, you know what, this is BS. This is all part of an agenda that's being pushed, whether it's Bloomberg, whether it's Rahm Emanuel, whether it's whoever is in charge of the latest push to outlaw the personal ownership of firearms. People see through it now, and in a state where I'm at, it's open carry all the time, no license necessary.
You are so lucky. You are so lucky.
Yeah.
So are you walking around with the big old hog leg on your hip?
No, because I work on a federal installation, and I'm still not able to protect myself.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that sucks.
Bringing this up, there was an interesting story I saw the other day. It was a gun rights activist in Seattle gave a speech, and he hit on some truths that are very, very unpopular. And he happened to comment that the names behind gun control inevitably are Jewish, and looking at the past of the Jewish people, how they could be so fervently for gun control, which is, I think anybody who truly looks at the issue and starts, really examining the issue, seeing the names on the bills, seeing who's pushing for this and pushing for that more than anybody else, who consistently pushes for that. And he did bring up the fact that of all the gun bills that have been passed in the United States, every single one of them was sponsored by, dual citizens and Jewish citizens. And he brought this up, and I think it's a fair question. Well, immediately he was brought up.
Oh, he's an anti-Semite.
Exactly, immediately. And I think that's a very fair question. And I think when we start being afraid of the questions that we've already lost.
Well, when you look at it like this way, right? We're supposed to live in a society that allows open discourse, debate. We encourage differing opinions. But when you become so close-minded to where you resort to ad hominem attacks to discredit your opposite, viewpoint, well, you're pretty self-evident that you have an agenda. And, there's no amount of debate, there's no amount of open-minded conversation that can change you from what you're doing. And that, I think, it's evident at any university. It's evident at any community college in our nation. There are very few organizations on campuses that are allowed to exist anymore. I think with the exception of a couple at NCAA schools that have a historical tie to the shooting sports in terms of like trap, skeet, whatever. Those kind of organizations, hunt clubs aren't even allowed on campuses.
Well, because you're killing defenseless animals. How come you just don't go to Walmart and get your food where nothing had to die?
Oh, of course. Because, that's the way that the instructors are telling students, hey, you don't have to hunt and forage for your food. That's where Kroger comes in.
I don't know. I know when my son was in middle school here, they offered it wasn't an outdoors class, but they actually taught their hunter education at the school during that class. It's like not a naturalist class. Anyway, but they talked about wildlife, and they actually received their hunter education. My son already had his, but it didn't hurt him to go through it again. That's for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what. Previous shows we talked about it a lot. I had to go through a 6-month hunting course in Germany, which is worthless to me here in the States. And I still have to go through hunter safety. I still have to go and do all those. The United States has to have hunter safety course. After September 1st, 1972, you have to have it.
Wow.
Yeah, we just got lucky, Mike. Got lucky. Missed the cutoff there.
I've been there just by a few days.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Thankfully enough, while I was in Texas, I went with my friend and a good buddy from Korea, and I was able to go and shoot a exotic. It was an axis stag. Coming back from Korea after 15 months of not shooting anything. It was awesome. First off, that I even had the opportunity to go link up with him and his family, and that he was gracious enough to host me and my family. But to even get out there and get a chance to get a shot at a deer, that was awesome. And it's in the end of July. Deer season.
Okay,
in most
so
states
what did you shoot it with?
Okay, so I have the mother of all rifles, which unfortunately had a malfunction in terms of, oh, by the way, I've never shot it off of a lead sled, so it made my scope slide forward on the rails, and I didn't realize that until I kept having to adjust, thinking, I just had it on a 0, and we didn't figure it out until I tried to put the scope cover back on. I just thought something was going on with the scope, and then figured out, oh, hey, I can't even get the scope cover back on. It slid all the way forward up to the rear sight. So he ended up loaning me a 7mm Remington Magnum, and I think it was made by Remington. But he gave me a Winchester White Box Super X 150 grain lead point soft tip, and that's what I used.
And it dropped it fairly easy.
Oh, certainly. I put a good shot. Went through the rib cage, hit the lung, hit the liver, and then redirected somehow and ended up lodged in the rear haunch. So we pulled the bullet as we were skinning the deer.
That magical redirection is known as the Connolly effect, by the way.
Yeah.
And speaking of the Connolly effect, that this week was the anniversary of Charles Whitman in the Tower.
Oh, go UT.
What's a quote from that movie that shows you what one motivated Marine and his rifle can do?
That's right. Highly motivated, I think it was. Yeah.
Highly motivated.
I still crack up at the book suppository building. That still cracks me up.
Well, I'll tell you what. I was driving from where my family was at, and we were driving down to San Antonio. We had to pass by University of Texas as we were driving on 35. And that is not something you want to do any time of the day between 2 in the afternoon and 7 p.m. But you can see the clock tower pretty easily from I-35 going south. It's a little interesting sight if you know the history behind it.
Yeah. Myself, I've walked around, within shooting distance of it, and looking up there at that thing. It's kind of spooky to think, man, if somebody was up there. Son of a gun! The command of fire, the field of fire they have there. Son of a gun, man! That covers a lot of territory.
Oh yeah. And you got to think.
What's the saying? High ground always holds.
Well, if it doesn't, it gives you a heck of a marked advantage.
Yeah, and from what I understand, when there were civilians going into the gun shops and getting guns and ammo, coming out and shooting back at that guy.
Oh, these guys are going to their own vehicles. This was Texas of a different era. These guys were going to their vehicles and getting weapons. They weren't going to gun shops.
Well, there you go. But yeah, or there's people shooting back.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. That's one of the things that you hear all the time about the shooter who goes off and does everything, but you never hear about the shooter who is brought down by a concealed carry holder. That conveniently doesn't make the news.
Well, and not only that, here's something else that didn't make the news, and Greg just brought this up, that people in various shooting situations, they've actually gone to a gun store to get something. And if you look back in, I think it was 1994 in Los Angeles, there was a bank robbery. You guys walked into a bank and basically shot it out with the cops for about 45 minutes.
Yep.
And there was a gun shop not too far from that bank. So the police went to that gun shop, and they took a whole bunch of guns. And I don't know if they were going to say bought, but, they got them, they took them. Do you know that the guy who operated that gun shop was prosecuted by the ATF because he didn't do the paperwork properly on those weapons?
Well, you talk about gun shops who are getting, prosecuted by ATF. You talk about those guys that were making the 80% completed AR lowers. Going in there.
Aries Tactical out of Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah, and confiscating their customer lists. That's insane. I mean,
the customer list is the scary part.
Yeah, it's like, you know what? You went out and bought a John Deere Gator, and you bought it from this store who, for whatever reason, didn't do the appropriate paperwork. Well, we're going to have the FBI go up and show up and raid these people, or the ATF, and raid these folks and get their customer list so they know everybody who owns a ATV now. I mean, people just don't understand the
alcohol, tractors, and firearms.
Hey, a lot of folks are just oblivious to the loss of privacy. I mean, think about it. There was that time back in New York where the local newspaper went and posted every concealed carry permit holder in that like tri-county area. I mean, that is a blatant.
That's it. That's really interesting that you bring that up, because the newspaper that published that immediately afterwards went out and got armed guards to protect their building.
Yeah, and not only that,
and then sponsored every one of their employees who wanted to go out and take a concealed weapons class and paid for the weapons.
Well, did you hear the Paul Harvey rest of the story on that one?
Give it to me.
Yeah, okay. Pass in.
All right. So part of that was one of the concealed carry holders who was outed, for lack of a better term, by the newspaper when they published the story with the names and addresses of the folks who own the concealed carry holders. They went and published a same graphic map with the names and addresses of all the reporters who work for that newspaper. So it was like, hey, a little quid pro quo here, and that's what spurred the newspaper to go ahead and have the armed guards show up. They weren't going to do it until every single one of their employees was put on blast and said, hey, You want to go ahead and take away, people's rights to privacy in their own homes? Well, guess what? The shoe drops, and how does it feel?
I think the same thing ought to be done with the police officers. Be some accountability maybe then that, none of this brutality and abuse of power that they do have going on. If there was some accountability, because most of them live 2 towns over. They don't live in the same town they're a cop in anymore.
No, because that would mean community policing, and that would mean people know you. The way it's done now is you have that air of anonymity. People don't know who you are except that you got a badge, you got a gun, and you got a car with a big flashing light, and they have the right to pull you over. I had an interesting conversation where, it was, hey, does a broken or a inoperable, brake light, does that constitute probable cause to pull you over for and check your vehicle? I say no, but I know the answer is if a police officer deems it, yeah, he's going to do it. And not only that, he's going to try and get whatever information he can out of anybody in that vehicle to constitute a search. There was a story a couple days ago about a concealed carry holder from New Jersey, and he was driving into Maryland. And Maryland has what they call the automated license plate readers, and he passed through a section of highway in Maryland, and they snapped a picture of his license plate. They ran it across the Maryland, their database for Homeland Security that they get the funds from the government for, and they had a traffic stop waiting for him where police officers got out, stopped the vehicle, where his concealed firearm was, and when he told them it's at home, they didn't get satisfied with that. They held him for 2.5 hours while they strip searched his car. They asked his family members where his concealed weapon was, and when they didn't get suitable answers from them, they further detained them. So, you're talking about a marked loss in just your basic rights as an American citizen to privacy, to not have undue searches and seizures. Fourth Amendment doesn't mean anything to anybody anymore until something like this happens to them, and then everybody's screaming.
Theme song says it the best, man. It's jackboot thugs in riot gear gonna kick your ass and laugh.
You know what? And how often do those people turn tail if something were to happen with them? I've seen it all the time. You see it when the fire department doesn't like the police department, and likewise, right? Well, who polices the police? Who polices the police? I see police officers giving fire department guys shit all the time, and who's going to do the same thing to the police?
Okay, a long time ago, this is completely off the gun subject. A long time ago, I used to be a paramedic, and I picked up when you work an area, you end up getting some regular customers, so to speak. And we had this guy's name was Virgil, and that's all I'm going to call him is Virgil. But Virgil was a chronic drunk, homeless guy, and really no big of a problem until he got kind of drunk and acted stupid around traffic. And I'd taken Virgil to the hospital up until that point when I took him about this incident, probably 5 times prior. And a trip of Virgil always ended up with like 2 hours of cleaning the ambulance afterwards, just because he likes to pee everywhere. I guess that happens when you drink 2 gallons of vodka in an afternoon when it's like 104 out. But I showed up on scene, and we knew Virgil was there, so Virgil, go ahead and pee now. And I had Virgil pee on the side of the road. And this cop was going to actually put me in jail for having him urinate on the side of the road. And
that's public urination. Well, that's
I think Bin Laden used to pee in public.
Well, you know what? Think about it. And you don't want to let the terrorists win, Michael.
I don't. No, and I'm here to remind everybody that anything you do wrong, the terrorists did. So quit doing things wrong, people.
That's crazy. Totally crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, like, there's a level, the giving a guy a badge and a gun is, that puts a whole lot of power in the guy's hand. And what's really sad is a lot of these guys, if they didn't have a badge and a gun, what kind of job would they do?
No, I'll tell you what. half of them could be construction guys, because I'll tell you what, the construction guys that I saw out there today, I left for work, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I was on the road. There was a guy holding the stop on one side and the slow on the other side. 7 hours later, he was in the exact same position he was as I was returning home. I mean,
he probably makes $26 an hour doing that,
and he's probably getting a state pension.
He's got benefits.
Hey, you know, that's Obamacare in action right there.
I believe the University of Arizona's got a master's degree program in sign holding.
That's okay. Arizona State University is offering women the course credit for failing to shave their armpits and everything else for a semester. So, which really doesn't surprise you from Arizona State. I mean, Sun Devil women were always a different breed, if you know what I mean.
Must be at Lake Havasu water or something.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, there's fluoride out there.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed since I've been back in, and I've seen a couple different big box stores, is there's not a whole lot of any ammunition on the rack except for 410, 308, 270, 30-06, and 7mm Remington Magnum. Aside from your 12 gauge of different varieties, that's it. That's all I'm seeing.
Shotgun shells. Really? So no handgun ammunition. No
I do see 45 ACP. 9mm is it's hit or miss. You'll either see it when they've just put it out, or you'll not see it at all. But I even asked as I was purchasing my hunting license today. I even asked the guy. I'm like, hey, when is your shipment coming? Well, our sporting goods director says they come in on Fridays. And I'm like, well, okay, what day does the old guys who, obviously show up with nothing else on their mind, what day do they show up? That's the ticket
every
right
day.
There. Yeah, I guess.
Those guys show up every day.
That's what I want to do when I retire. I want to be the guy that goes to, Walmart and buys out their 22.
The only part about being that old guy that buys out all the 22 is you got to resell that ammo, or you're just sitting on a whole bunch of 22.
Well, what do you think gun shows are for, man?
They're not selling. It's not selling at gun shows. People are to the point where they're not buying the bucket of bullets, the bucket of Remington Golden Bullet 1400 count bucket for $70 at Academy. They are not going to go to the gun show and buy it for $219 or more. They're not doing it. Nobody's buying a box of CCI Stingers for $37, but it's $7 at the store.
Okay, because the
ammo sales are not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen 22 shells in the real small box, and I don't even know how many rounds those are in those. But it's not that. Okay, so I was gonna say that's the only thing I've seen, and it was like one or two on the.
But 22 and ship it to me.
Yeah.
Because we had a little bit of 22 here for a while, but then it's seeming to dry up again. So I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of they're shipping to one area of the country and then they ship to another area of the country until they build the stock back up. But
the explanation I got today was why there was no 22 is President Obama signed the legislation that closed the last lead smelting operation in the U.S. So don't look for 22. I was like, you're a moron. I'm like, you should take that little Walmart tag that that lanyard that holds your name tag on it there, Skippy, and you should just choke yourself with it. Do us all a favor and recycle those chromosomes into the atmosphere, because you're not doing them any justice.
It's good you're back home, Nick. I'm telling you, I kind of missed your brand of anger.
Yeah,
I like it, Nick.
It's unique. It's unique. It's got its own flavor.
So Nick, you tell me you can't go into a PX on the base. You can't go into a PX on the base or whatever there and buy ammo. You can't.
No. That you can do. You can like, for example, we'll give you Fort Hood, right? The epicenter for workplace violence, as Obama's administration likes to call it. Couldn't be terrorism, because the definition of terrorism doesn't apply when you're in uniform. But you can go on to the Post Exchange. A lot of people call it the PX. You can go at Fort Hood and buy almost any ammunition that they have in stock, as long as you have the authorization and to be shopping there. mainly either be a contractor, an active duty military, or a family member with an ID card. They sell that stuff. They sell firearms there, but not in places like California.
Any kind of price break? I mean, are they any cheaper there than regular stores?
You don't pay the sales tax. So, for example, when you go to shop at an exchange, they'll say, "Yeah, we save you money." Well, yeah, they're saving you the 7% or whatever state sales tax, but then again, the prices are a little bit more expensive to make it up for it. I mean, AFES, which is the organization that runs the exchanges for the Army and the Air Force, they're a for-profit business. They're not going to lose money, but they're not stupid either, and they're going to sit there and say, "Hey, based on where our customers are at and what they want to do, we'll sell them whatever they want." It is the definition of the company store, because I'll tell you what, they're out there with us in Afghanistan, they're out there with us in Iraq and the Philippines and all those other assorted sundry places where people want to blow us up, but they're not going to be there to not make money. I think that the biggest thing that I see is that when guys go out there and they want to, buy a firearm, they'll just do whatever they can to check the prices.
Well, that depends on what firearm they're buying and who the buyer is. I'm a member of a few firearms-related trading groups, and one of them's got 15,000 members. And I see a lot of people coming in, and they have no idea what they want. And they just know that they have this certain amount, and what can they get. And I don't necessarily think that's the best way to go. I mean, I'm not into infringing on anybody's right to purchase or anybody's right to commerce or anything like that. But I think there needs to be a little bit of education. But I'm not in favor of legislating any of this. I think this needs to be kind of like a group effort. That we all have to kind of together and educate the folks out there that there's a bit of a standard has to be applied to the firearms community. And honestly, if you write a post saying that you've got $300 and you're looking for a GAT, I'm not going to deal with you.
Well, most responsible folks wouldn't either. But then again, there is. I'm a big fan of history, and there's a Latin phrase for that called caveat emptor. The buyer should beware. And if a fool and his money want to be parted, like P.T. Barnum said, let it happen.
I agree.
That is the free market economy at work.
It's going to happen.
I will say that I've had times at shows where I think people bought something from me that I thought was they paid way too much. But he asked no questions. He made no effort on his own. He pulled out the cash. And then I've had guys that have quizzed me incessantly on things. And I don't mind dealing with that.
No, I mean, I wouldn't mind dealing with anybody that has questions. Obviously, if, number one, they're either A, trying to increase their own knowledge, or trying to do it for the benefit of a family member or somebody that's with them, you got no problem with that. But obviously there's a difference between somebody who just you get the warm and fuzzies from, and then somebody who gives you the creepy crawlies. And I think that a lot of the anti-gun establishment, they look for those kind of things, because when you have the guy that shot up Fort Hood the first time, the Nidal Hassan, he went and bought his firearm from Guns Galore on South Fort Hood Street, and they have a sign in there that says, "We don't sell guns to stupid people." Well, okay, what good does that do?
Well, how do you tell a major in the Army he's a stupid person?
Well, let me let you in on a little clue. Most are, except for a few very, very good ones. But I'll tell you
what. Off the subject a little bit, I did see that 500 majors are getting laid off this week.
I hope they're going to be able to use those degrees for something.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're an expert with a weapon or expert on weapon safety. That's for sure.
Oh, certainly not. I can tell you we have more negligent discharges in the service than anything that any organization that I've ever seen. I mean, the last negligent discharge that I saw, or even was privy to hear about, was at a rod and gun club, and it was the instructor who had the negligent discharge. And this is going back about a year or two, but it just goes to show you that no matter what your experience with a firearm, it doesn't matter if you take a lax approach to it, bad things will happen.
That's right. You know,
Nick, that's a perfect segue to seriously to the most important part of the show, the safety. We can't have accidents if we follow the 4 rules of gun safety. And the first rule is every weapon is loaded until you verify that the weapon is not loaded.
Yeah.
You have to open it up. You have to check it. You take the magazine out, pull the slide back, pop the cylinder open, break the action open, pull that bolt back, make sure that there's not a bullet, and more importantly, make sure there's not going to be a bullet when you close it.
Oh, that would mean keeping the magazine out of the magazine well, too.
Yes, that's an important part.
That's the one that a lot of folks forget.
Yeah, they do, and that's a shame because bad things happen. Rule number 2 is don't sweep anybody with the muzzle. Please keep the weapon pointed in a safe direction at all times. Rule number 3 is know what your target is and be aware of what's beyond your target. We're not all Annie Oakley. We're not going to hit every time, so know what's behind it. And to me, the most important rule is the 4th rule, which is, ladies and gentlemen, please keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you're ready to fire. The finger does not go in the trigger guard, does not touch the trigger until you are ready to discharge the weapon.
Yep.
Can't have an accidental discharge unless you pull the trigger. And there are no accidental discharges. They're all negligent discharges.
They are. And, you know, it's one of those things that a very good friend of mine, while I was hunting with in Germany, he always told me, he says, you know, there is no recall on that bullet. Once it leaves, it's gone.
That's true.
Exactly right. So, you to bring that up again, that hunter's education class you took in Germany, how was it? I mean, did you learn anything? Did you take anything away from it? You said, man.
Yeah, actually.
I took that.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the course, and I'll tell you what, I got it wasn't abbreviated. It was a condensed course due to the fact that I was assigned to a different unit than the one that was actually offering it. So they only had a couple of slots available for folks outside of that organization. But I was fortunate enough to get one. And, you know, the course didn't just cover, you know, weapon safety. It was an all-inclusive biology, you know, game preparation, laws, statutes, everything that you need to know to be certified in Germany to own a firearm. And then, like I said, how many times do people go to Walmart, just buy the tag or the license, and get out in the forest? You can't do that there. You actually have to go and prove you're a marksman. You have to take a shooting test, both on rifle and shotgun, to even get your license. And I think that for all the information that I learned, it wouldn't matter a hill of beans if I wasn't able to put that bullet where I wanted to.
Well, most certainly. Shoot, I'm sure we've all seen people that we didn't think to had any business with a weapon in their hand out in the woods with other people. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, just ask Dick Cheney, you know.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that, you know, when I talk to people, people say, "Oh, well, that's an oppressive system. You know, that's an elitist system." I said, "Well, you know what? Think about it this way. Would you want to know that the guy that's out there in the forest or the girl who's out there in the forest has not only the ability, but is trained enough in the use of their firearm to, number one, be safe, and number two, to actually be a good enough marksman to know the fundamentals of shooting, but also be able to hit what they're aiming at and give it a good lethal kill?" How often do you hear about people, you know, if you're talking about Chicago or if you're talking about hunters, how often do you talk and hear about people saying, "Oh, well, I shot at it and it ran off, but I wasn't able to recover it"? I mean, to me, that's the crime. You know, the crime is the waste of a finite resource. You know, people in Montana used to get the ticket for wasting a finite resource when they were speeding at 140 miles an hour.
I got one of those tickets in Arizona. honestly, Nick, I don't know if you remember, I took you to the airport in Phoenix, and I got that ticket on the way back. I got that ticket in Casa Grande.
Oh, hey, that's what we call business I-10.
That was a long time ago, man.
Yeah. So I mean, the way I look at it, maybe I lived outside the States for a little too long. But the way I look at it is, if you're competent in the use and maintenance and care of your firearm, you are going to be a safer element and a much better ambassador for our shooting sports, our shooting rights, our hunting rights, than just a guy who goes out and spends the money for the lobbying group in Washington, D.C.
Sure, and also to be able to teach those to the next generation coming up too, those same skills, and pass that knowledge along too. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, I told Michael a while ago. I was kind of looking back on my time in elementary school, and I'm thinking, you know what? I went to elementary school in California, and I didn't realize it at the time because I didn't know what it was.
We survived.
Yeah, we survived. But there is a drive at all levels of education to turn children against owning firearms or even tolerating those who do. I remember I was in second grade, and there was a debate about people owning firearms. I mean, as much as second graders can debate firearms, the teacher basically lined us up on two sides of the room and says, who thinks there should be, the opportunity for people to own guns? And I remember I was with one other girl, and I was on one side of the room, and the entire side of the class was over there. And she constantly asking me questions. I haven't killed any. I don't understand how organizations can get 40 and 50-year-old women to sit there and go along with their party line. I just, for the life of me, can't figure it out. And then I said, you know what? These are people who consume every. Sure does.
Yeah, marketing 101. They just bombard it with them over and over and over.
Certainly getting the message, and it's packaged, it's delivered. This way, every sitcom it's on there. There's maybe with the exception of Duck Dynasty and a couple of the other hunting shows on Versus Network or some of the other game channels. There's nothing positive when it comes to.
No, you're right. Those some of those. It's the bad guy, and the cops taking them down. That's.
Troopers who were shot and killed by the news called him a native Alaskan. So that was what we used to call, the Inuit or the Eskimo. One of these guys that lives in a remote town. What do you do? The cop knows he's doing a job that.
All of a sudden, from your mic, from your mic.
I'm sorry, my Skype keeps on cutting out. I don't know what's going on. I missed about half everything y'all just said.
That's all right. So basically, what we're looking at is there's not a lot of. We've got a limited reach, and in order for us to keep having that available. Young folks to get out there. I've heard now that my state doesn't even have it.
Terrible. It's terrible. I have taken my son on. $75 for a whole weekend, two-day hunt. And showed them how to make sausage and made sure everybody was proficient with a weapon, and it was just. The states have a version of the same thing.
Oh, that'd be great. And, what better way to teach kids about their own biology than by showing them that the nature around them shares a lot of the same features. You open up a wild a cadaver outside a medical school, Texas is overrun with wild hogs. This is how cartilage attaches to bone. This is what an actual brain looks like. This is what a lung looks like.
Yeah, this is what a gun wound looks like.
Exactly.
A lot in biology class, I know. Before I've touched it before, so most definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And think about it. That's probably the closest that some kids are ever going to have the opportunity to get to nature. So I just think that back with the federal duck stamp to buy an extra one. You don't necessarily see that anymore.
Well, my thing is, man, I'm big on getting the little guys involved, whether it's a boy or girl, doesn't matter to me. They are being worked on at school and the different TV programs they watch, and it's important to keep in their minds that guns aren't bad.
Yeah, it's a tool just like anything else, and I think that I was going to say there's a cabal of people that want to change your kid's opinion of not only you and your likes, but what it is that you want for them in their future.
Oh, most certainly. Every show I've been on with Mike, I've always bring up the BB guns. I'm big on shooting air rifles. I think that's great practice, and that's a great way to introduce a kid. You got somebody with a birthday coming up, buy them a BB gun.
You'll put your eye out.
Well, look at exactly just that. Look how pervasive it is in the culture. That's one of the most popular movies at Christmas time. A Christmas Story.
Exactly.
And everybody knows that. So
of course. And plus, it doesn't hurt when TBS plays it 24 hours on Christmas. You know what I mean?
I think I've probably seen that movie 36 times.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Get your kid. Get your kids interested in shooting sports. They'll learn a skill that will serve them for a lifetime.
Agreed.
I think that.
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, I was going to say, I think that even if they do it for the sport aspect of it and they don't do it for the hunting aspect of it, I think that putting holes in paper is just enough fun to be out there with them and sharing that time.
Heck yeah, it's the things you do with your kids you remember, not the things you don't do. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, and remember, there's no X button in the forest.
There's no cheat code.
Yeah.
I know when mine was little and I got him out in the woods, it's always important to make sure you bring enough Skittles.
Oh yeah. Hey, there's not that's why in Germany they have the hunting stands are usually built enough for two people, and they've got a spot to let one of them sleep.
Well, we've got 1 minute left, guys. Michael, thanks again for having me on. Nick, enjoyed it. Nice meeting you. And thanks to Jules and UCY. And
Grigo, thanks for coming through, man. I totally appreciate your help.